Most people have no idea that Las Vegas is building a $310 million spaceport right now. No big announcement, no billboards, no flashy reveal on the strip. Yet out in the desert, far from the crowds and casinos, a massive launch site is taking shape. The strange part is how quietly everything has moved forward, almost like someone wanted the entire project to stay hidden until the last possible moment. The desert near Las Vegas holds many forgotten projects, yet this one stands out because of its silence. No signs, no ads, just an expanding construction zone that seems prepared for something far larger than any tourist attraction the city has ever tried to build before. As more equipment rolled in, locals noticed how unusual the shipments looked compared to typical resort construction. Large steel frames, odd-shaped structures, and long crates suggested something specialized, and people driving past the site felt unsure how such a major development avoided attention for so long. Trucks entered the area at late hours, loaded with materials normally seen at advanced industrial zones, not entertainment districts. Residents living nearby watched these movements from their windows, trying to understand why the workers operated with such precision and avoided unnecessary contact with anyone outside the fence. Rumors spread around small community forums as hobby photographers posted distant images showing shapes on the ground that didn't match anything familiar. People guessed it might be a private airport, yet the runway outlines appeared too long and too reinforced for ordinary aircraft. Some locals assumed a billionaire planned a personal landing strip, but even that explanation didn't match the scale. The groundwork stretched across an area larger than several casinos combined, and something about the layout suggested infrastructure meant to support vertical movement rather than simple takeoffs. Survey lines carved through the desert sand caught attention because they followed patterns used in aerospace testing. Engineers often map wind channels and safety zones this way, and those who recognized the markings felt a growing sense that this project had nothing to do with vacation amenities. Early documents appeared online containing vague references to aviation upgrades, but none described the exact purpose. The language seemed intentionally broad, almost like someone wanted the project classified under generic categories to avoid raising suspicion among people who watch city development announcements closely. A full perimeter fence went up with surprising speed, complete with cameras pointed inward rather than outward. This detail bothered many residents because most city projects welcome outside observation, yet here everything faced the workers, as if protecting whatever was happening inside from being recorded. Journalists reached out to officials seeking clarity, but received short statements offering no real answers. The lack of transparency created additional interest, especially among reporters who sensed that silence on a project costing hundreds of millions usually means something far more ambitious than advertised. A leaked budget sheet spread across online groups, showing the confirmed cost at $310 million. That number alone shifted the conversation because no minor project receives that kind of funding, and people wanted to know who approved such an unusually high investment. Residents questioned how a project this large bypassed widespread discussion, considering most local plans undergo public hearings. Many wondered if decisions happened in private meetings, raising suspicion that powerful groups pushed the plan forward while keeping the public unaware of the true purpose behind it. Officials delivered more repetitive statements about infrastructure improvements without addressing specifics. Their careful avoidance of direct explanations made the situation feel even stranger, especially since public pressure normally forces clearer answers. Yet here the responses stayed short, controlled, and nearly identical each time. Aerial hobbyists shared new photos of the site, revealing long strips forming across the terrain. These strips looked too robust for private jets and too spaced out for normal flight operations. Observers compared them to launch staging areas seen at smaller commercial space centers. People approaching workers during shift changes noticed their conversations avoided small talk. They spoke in measured technical terms about testing cycles and load limits, hinting at a field where precision mattered deeply. It felt unusual for a project supposedly unrelated to anything experimental or high risk. The early shapes on the ground grew clearer as construction advanced. Large reinforced pads appeared where cranes hovered for extended periods. These pads looked like they were designed to handle intense downward force, and that alone pushed more residents toward the idea of launch activity. Construction echoed across neighborhoods during off hours, and families living nearby became curious about the night shifts. They noticed lights staying on through the early morning, the kind used for critical builds requiring exact temperature conditions or specialized equipment that teams cannot leave unattended. A tall control tower slowly rose from the sand, unlike anything built for normal aircraft. The windows wrapped around with a design often used at facilities requiring clear views in every direction, hinting at monitoring responsibilities beyond guiding simple departures and arrivals. People recognized the company logos on some worker uniforms and realized they belonged to private aerospace contractors. These companies rarely work on local city projects, and their presence shifted speculation from simple guesses to serious assumptions that something major was underway, far beyond entertainment planning. City documents listed a placeholder name that provided almost no information. It felt intentional, almost like someone wanted to file the paperwork quickly without drawing attention. The name held none of the branding usually attached to high-profile Las Vegas developments. Satellites passing overhead revealed circular formations in the ground, matching layouts used for launch pads. Amateur analysts studied the images and compared them with known diagrams from other states, finding strong similarities that strengthened the belief that rockets, not planes, were the center of this design. A shipment of large pressurized tanks arrived under escort, and people familiar with aerospace equipment recognized them instantly. These tanks matched the type used for cryogenic fuel storage, something only needed for vehicles that generate extreme thrust rather than traditional runways serving consumer flights. Locals who followed rocket programs noticed that these tanks appeared identical to ones used at famous launch facilities in other states. That created more speculation because these tanks are not used in commercial airports or warehouses, leaving few explanations other than spaceflight operations. A new access road opened quietly, lined with restricted entry signs that blocked public vehicles. People driving past wondered why such protections surrounded a project that should have been advertised proudly if it were related to business growth or tourism. The site expanded at a pace that surprised many observers, growing into something far larger than earlier predictions. The full area now extended across a section of land that suggested multiple phases of development, pointing toward long-term plans rather than a short-lived experiment. A small community group filed public records requests and pushed for transparency. When documents finally arrived, they found the term spaceport listed plainly. That single word changed the entire conversation, exposing a truth that most residents never expected to see, tied to their city. The discovery of the word spaceport spread across online groups faster than anyone expected, and people felt both shocked and curious because the project no longer looked like simple development but something tied to advanced technology that could change the region's identity forever. Online discussions exploded as users shared screenshots and maps, yet mainstream coverage remained small. The lack of national attention made the project feel even more unusual, as if the quiet rollout was designed to finish major steps before any spotlight arrived. People commented on how no official press conference had been held despite the enormous budget. Many said it felt almost intentional, like someone hoped the public would only notice once the project reached a stage where changing direction became impossible. When the city explained the spaceport as a move for future transportation needs, residents found the phrase too vague. That wording could fit anything from freight testing to commercial launches, but nothing matched the scale of the structures rising in the desert. The explanation lacked detail, leaving a gap between what people saw and what they were told. The massive reinforced pads, large hangars, and heavy equipment pointed towards something more advanced than simple transportation upgrades, pushing curiosity deeper into the community. Analysts began studying the project and noticed details matching private spaceflight companies, including structural spacing used for launch safety. This created more intrigue, as those companies usually announce partnerships loudly, yet here everything moved quietly, without major branding or recognizable marketing. A new warehouse emerged that resembled an assembly hangar, with wide doorways and strong beams meant to support tall objects. People familiar with aerospace facilities recognized the characteristic design and believed the site could soon handle full-size rocket sections. Wind measurement poles appeared across the area, arranged in patterns used for launch planning. Observers understood these readings helped determine safe flight windows, making it clear the project involved operations far more complex than standard aviation or tourism upgrades. Soil testing crews returned regularly, studying layers of the ground with careful detail. Reports later revealed assessments for high-pressure landings, a requirement only necessary for vehicles capable of descending with extreme force, hinting at reusable rockets or advanced landing systems. Comparisons with smaller spaceports showed this project was on a different level, not only in area, but also in the type of infrastructure being installed. Everything suggested a long-term plan aimed at becoming a major launch hub rather than a simple experiment. As new construction maps leaked, people realized the layout supported several launch pads instead of just one. That meant more activity than basic testing, pointing toward an operation that could handle frequent flights, training missions, or commercial travel programs in the future. Analysts noticed how pathways between buildings matched patterns for fuel transport, safety exits, and emergency crews. The precision behind each structure hinted that experts behind the design anticipated fast response needs, a clear sign of dealing with powerful propulsion systems. Security teams began patrolling the site with unmarked vehicles. Their presence differed from typical construction security because they monitored not only the fence line, but also anyone who paused along public roads, indirectly confirming the sensitivity of the project behind the walls. Drone hobbyists attempting to capture new footage reported receiving official warnings. Some said their drones lost signal near the perimeter, suggesting advanced interference systems were installed, the type typically used around protected government or aerospace facilities. A large radar dome appeared, sitting atop a solid base and pointing toward the sky. People recognized this as equipment used to track fast-moving objects, which made sense only if the site planned to monitor launches, landings, or high-altitude test flights regularly. Economists questioned how Las Vegas intended to recover such a huge investment. Casinos usually anchor major spending, yet this project held no connection to gambling. That raised debates on whether the spaceport aimed to shift the city's long-term economic identity. Tech-focused residents theorized that the project might serve as a new hub for space tourism, an industry growing quickly. They believed Las Vegas wanted to position itself as a destination where visitors could combine entertainment with high-altitude travel experiences. Others worried taxpayers might bear the risk if the project failed. Launch facilities require specialized staff, constant maintenance, and expensive upgrades, and some feared the city might have underestimated the long-term costs tied to sustaining such an advanced operation. Conversations about possible secret partnerships circulated widely. People suspected that private companies might be involved behind the scenes, possibly offering funding or technology in exchange for future launch rights, adding another layer of mystery surrounding the quiet development. The city released a press note referencing high-altitude transport testing, a phrase aerospace analysts immediately flagged. That terminology matched documents used in rocket design programs, further reinforcing the idea that the spaceport was built for far more than commercial jets. Experts who reviewed the wording explained that high-altitude transport typically applies to systems designed to reach near space levels. Their observations pushed residents to rethink what might eventually launch from the desert, hinting at vehicles capable of extreme altitude travel. Pilots flying near the area reported new restricted airspace zones. These zones kept even experienced pilots away and expanded steadily, suggesting preparations for flight paths that needed wide clearance, something not typical for standard city aviation activity. Maps posted online revealed the restricted zones growing each week, forming shapes that fit launch safety patterns. It became clear that whatever the city planned would require a large protected buffer, confirming that the activities would reach into controlled airspace above multiple regions. Security increased with more personnel stationed around the perimeter. Residents driving by noticed more patrols and new equipment, giving the impression that the site was entering a new phase where sensitive components or valuable technology had finally arrived. Hidden cameras mounted near the road were spotted by sharp-eyed drivers, hinting that surveillance expanded beyond the fence. Their placement suggested concern about gathering outside footage, reinforcing the feeling that something important and high-risk now lived within the construction site. More construction equipment rolled in under heavy covers, and workers moved fast to unload everything before curious drivers could slow down. The covered shapes looked tall and metallic, creating speculation that core components of a larger system were finally arriving for assembly inside the restricted site. Observers who caught brief glimpses noticed metal segments that stood upright on trailers, suggesting they were meant to connect into something far taller. These parts resembled structural sections used in reusable rocket systems, creating a new wave of excitement and concern among residents watching closely. As discussions spread, aerospace enthusiasts identified similarities between the segments and components seen at other commercial launch facilities. Their comparisons added weight to the idea that Las Vegas might soon join the list of major regions working with advanced flight technology, rather than simple aviation upgrades. City officials continued denying any partnership with well-known companies, yet their statements avoided confirming alternatives. This created more questions because such a large undertaking rarely happened without corporate involvement, making many believe the real partners simply preferred staying out of public view for now. A political committee quietly approved additional funding, noted only in a small document released online. Analysts wondered why such significant financial decisions occurred without broad public discussion, especially for a project growing faster and more complex than most local developments in recent decades. Tourism officials tried framing the spaceport as a forward-thinking gamble meant to keep the city competitive. They highlighted how travel trends were changing and claimed Las Vegas needed projects beyond casinos, though their explanations still lacked the details residents hoped would make everything more understandable. Reports surfaced explaining how the region's dry climate, open airspace, and wide land area made it suitable for launches. These environmental advantages painted a picture of a city trying to reinvent itself through aerospace innovation, something far removed from the typical image of the Strip. Land surveys confirmed more expansion beyond the initial perimeter, revealing plans for extended flight paths and support zones. People realized this meant the spaceport would grow steadily, turning a quiet stretch of desert into a strategic piece of the city's long-term transformation. A retention pond appeared near the center of the construction site, built to manage extreme heat risks associated with rocket activity. Observers recognized that these ponds are common at launch facilities where emergency cooling and fire suppression require massive amounts of water stored safely nearby. Blast-resistant walls rose around key structures, forming barriers designed to contain powerful forces if anything malfunctioned. Residents took this as confirmation that tests involving high-thrust and dangerous materials were coming, escalating interest and pushing the project into a category far beyond simple experimentation. A group of investors arrived in black vehicles and toured the site under escort. Travel logs revealed many of them came from major tech and aerospace firms, suggesting that the financial and technological scale of the project attracted serious interest from industries beyond tourism. More travel records connected visitors to influential companies known for pushing ambitious projects. Their involvement fueled theories that private groups might contribute cutting-edge technology, making the spaceport more advanced than public documents showed, and possibly giving Las Vegas a role in next-generation aerospace development. Online communities tracked each visitor and found patterns linking them to companies experimenting with rapid transportation. These findings intensified the belief that Las Vegas aimed to introduce something entirely new, possibly positioning the desert city at the front of the commercial space travel race. Economists commented that tech investors rarely support projects lacking long-term potential. Their analysis suggested something bigger was planned behind the scenes, and the rapid construction timeline reinforced the idea that multiple phases had already been approved before the public even noticed. Work schedules tightened instead of slowing down, revealing deadlines that teams were pushing hard to meet. Observers who monitored daily progress noticed how each section connected seamlessly to the next, showing a level of coordination that usually accompanies high-priority national or commercial missions. New equipment labeled for high-speed tracking systems arrived, indicating that the facility planned to monitor objects moving faster than standard aircraft. The components suggested advanced sensors capable of following rockets or experimental vehicles throughout their ascent and descent over large distances. Underground cables were installed across the site, linking buildings in a network strong enough to support advanced communication. Engineers tested the lines carefully, knowing spaceflight operations require perfect signal reliability to coordinate between control rooms, launch pads, and emergency teams stationed throughout the area. Rumors circulated that the site might later test landing procedures for reusable rockets. People imagined these vehicles descending onto reinforced pads in the desert, bringing a level of technology that felt both exciting and intimidating for a city known mostly for entertainment and nightlife. The city approved new zoning laws around the spaceport perimeter, preparing for expanded operations. These laws controlled future construction near the launch area, confirming long-term plans, and signaling that the region expected regular aerial activity far beyond ordinary commercial flight patterns. Residential land prices near the site began rising, showing that investors anticipated future growth tied to the project. People saw this as a sign that those with insider knowledge believed the spaceport might eventually create new jobs, industries, and tourism opportunities in the region. Construction continued overnight, with bright floodlights illuminating massive structures, drawing attention even from distant neighborhoods. The intensity of the lights suggested time-sensitive tasks were underway, often the type that teams must complete before environmental conditions shift or equipment becomes too difficult to reposition safely. The first prominent building finally took full shape, resembling a launch operations center, with wide observation windows and thick support beams. Its design matched facilities where teams monitor flight data, manage communications, and coordinate emergency responses during launches and landings. Deliveries of thermal protection materials raised more questions. These materials could withstand extreme temperatures and typically covered parts of spacecraft or structures exposed to intense heat. Their presence indicated the project was ready to move beyond construction and toward handling equipment capable of reaching near space. Another hangar began rising, mirroring designs used to store large aerospace vehicles. Residents wondered if this second hangar signaled plans for multiple vehicles, suggesting a future where Las Vegas might host a fleet rather than a single prototype or test system. More permits appeared online referencing vertical takeoff systems, an unmistakable signal that rockets or advanced lift vehicles would eventually operate from the site. This confirmed what many already suspected: Las Vegas was preparing to enter the space industry with far more ambition than expected. Workers installed large cooling units beside reinforced structures, and observers recognized them as systems designed to handle intense heat output. Their size and placement showed that the facility expected regular exposure to temperatures far beyond anything seen at ordinary industrial complexes or commercial airports across the region. Heavy pipes were lowered into the ground and connected to massive exhaust channels, forming pathways strong enough to redirect extreme thrust. These installations suggested that launches would produce powerful force, the kind that required engineered routes to protect surrounding buildings and equipment from structural damage. Technicians began testing hydraulic systems used to operate enormous doors on the hangars. These doors moved with slow precision, revealing internal frameworks ready to hold vehicles too large or too sensitive to be exposed during normal construction hours, reinforcing the idea of advanced aerospace operations ahead. As more of the facility took shape, residents realized the project had reached a point where its purpose could no longer remain hidden. The hangars, pads, exhaust structures, and heavy equipment formed a complete picture, pointing toward active launch capability instead of distant future testing. From certain angles, the entire complex now resembled a fully operational space facility. The organized layout, clear zones, and strategic placement of buildings made it clear that workers followed a master plan, one crafted long before anyone outside official circles even noticed the first survey markers. Officials prepared for a public announcement, though the event faced several postponements. Each delay sparked speculation that major decisions were being finalized behind closed doors, possibly involving companies negotiating contracts or coordinating the timing to maximize attention once the announcement went live. A confidential draft leaked online, describing upcoming orbital tourism trials. The wording shocked many because it suggested the spaceport would not remain an experimental site, but could support passenger experiences designed to reach extreme altitudes, something far beyond simple research flights or cargo missions. Local tourism boards quietly updated marketing plans, exploring ways to promote high-altitude experiences as part of future Las Vegas packages. Their preparations signaled confidence that the project would become a major attraction, possibly transforming the city's image from entertainment hub to aerospace destination. A major tech conference added a private event connected to the spaceport, drawing even more industry attention. This decision suggested that insiders knew something significant was about to be revealed, and companies wanted to position themselves close to whatever opportunities the new facility might create. Investors continued arriving, each tour treated with strict security and heavily controlled access. Their presence reinforced the belief that the spaceport represented far more than a risky gamble, and instead stood as a long-term project supported by groups willing to invest in ambitious technology. Engineers tested powerful lighting systems across the facility, illuminating the entire complex in sharp detail visible from distant highways. Drivers reported seeing beams shine across the desert, creating the impression of a site ready to operate around the clock once launches began. A fuel depot connected to underground lines neared completion, marking one of the final phases needed for launch capability. The depot's location and construction style matched those at other spaceports, confirming that the facility could safely store and transport advanced propellants when operations started. Workers poured concrete across wide landing pads designed for heavy downward force. Observers recognized these as areas capable of handling vehicles returning from high altitudes, indicating plans for both launches and controlled landings, a key feature for reusable systems aiming to cut operational costs. A dedicated fire station opened next to the main complex, staffed with specialized crews trained for aerospace emergencies. This addition signaled that the spaceport was entering a stage where advanced safety protocols were necessary, showing how close the project was to actual launch readiness. Security grew tighter as new checkpoints appeared around the perimeter. People driving past noticed added barriers and more frequent patrols, suggesting valuable equipment or sensitive material had arrived, marking the transition from heavy construction to operational preparation. Residents spotted a covered test vehicle being moved inside a hangar. Though the shape remained hidden, its height and length indicated that it wasn't ordinary cargo. Observers suspected it might be a component of the first prototype meant to undergo preparation inside the facility. Officials announced a scheduled press event near the site, finally acknowledging the scale of the project. The announcement felt long overdue, especially for locals who watched the spaceport grow from survey flags to a massive complex without clear public explanations for months. Rumors spread that a major private rocket company would be revealed during the event. People debated which group it might be, analyzing past partnerships and financial patterns, hoping to identify the industry player responsible for driving such an ambitious development in the Nevada desert. Some residents expressed excitement about launching into a new technological era, while others worried about noise, safety, and disruption. The mixed reactions showed how deeply the spaceport influenced the community, stirring emotions about how the city might evolve if launches became routine. News crews finally covered the project on a larger scale, bringing national attention. Their footage highlighted how much had been built without public awareness, surprising many viewers who associated Las Vegas only with tourism rather than advanced aerospace infrastructure rising quietly outside city limits. The city confirmed the full budget and purpose of the spaceport, framing it as an investment in future travel and innovation. Their announcement aligned with the growing evidence that the facility aimed to become a central part of the expanding commercial spaceflight industry. City leaders emphasized that Las Vegas wanted to diversify beyond entertainment, presenting the spaceport as the foundation for a new economic future. They highlighted potential jobs, research opportunities, and tourism experiences, hoping to secure public support for the massive project. The announcement hinted that test launches would begin sooner than expected, catching many by surprise. Construction progress suggested that the spaceport had moved faster than most observers realized, reaching a stage where early flights could soon prove whether the project lived up to its ambitions. People began discussing how the spaceport might change Las Vegas forever. Some imagined a future where tourists visited not only casinos but also watched launches or even boarded high-altitude flights, giving the city a new identity built around innovation rather than nightlife alone. As final preparations continued, the spaceport stood nearly complete, a massive project that grew almost unnoticed until the truth surfaced. The world now waited to see what would rise from the desert, leaving everyone with one pressing question: what exactly will lift off first?